more relevant to us, some of us have to pay the tuition, or sometimes we have to take out loans. So debt is going to be, or is a part of our lives every day. So it is easy to think that maybe I can just shrug off, not think about my debt and just put it under the rug. But in reality, your debt doesn't go away that easily. So if you don't keep track of your debt and you don't pay attention to who you owe in life, it can cause a really big problem for you. And so this is kind of what happened to the company Enron. They are a energy and gas company. They decided to test out that sweeping under the rug concept regarding their debt. In my speech, I will talk about what Enron is and their goal. I will talk about the problems that led to their downfall, and I will talk about the result from that downfall. Okay. Enron was established in July of 1985 by a gentleman named Kenneth Lay, and he was an energy economist, and so he founded this company and became the CEO. His goal was to make Enron the leading energy provider in the world in the free market, in a way of starting a new way to trade energy. In the 1980s, Washington had lifted a regulation of who can produce energy, and so that brought a lot of competition into that free market. This was a great opportunity for Enron because they would be able to be that middleman and provide stable prices of energy while also making a profit along the way. A gentleman named Jeff Skilling, he consulted Lay, and he told him that he can make more profit if Enron was able to sell future gas contracts at a fixed price today. So it would go against any future movements in gas prices. And so this is what Enron did, and they started trading online. So a lot of their income, about 90% of their income, had come from this new form of trading. This led to Enron being a large player in the U.S. Energy market. I will now be discussing what led to the downfall of Enron. And because, like I stated earlier, they started trading online. So they became one of the first energy companies to do this over the internet. And so within 2 years, they were able to make over $880 billion. A lot of doubt came through this profit within the company. People were wondering, how did they make so much money in 2 years? And people started asking, did these trades really make that much money in those 2 years? Enron started an accounting technique, and this accounting technique led for them to keep their shares high, but also raise investment against their assets and their stock, and also maintain that appearance of being that successful company. And so this was what the technique was. They would put assets into these independent partnerships, a theoretical partnership that they would create, which would allow them to remove their assets from their books. And so what would happen is they would make investments in these partnerships, and they would be able to remove those debts. And by doing that, they would be able to have potential income just in case they had losses in the future. So a lot of the times, these investments, before they even started, the investments into these partnerships, they would put those profits on their books way before any activity had started. So an example that I had researched was they had contracted with Blockbuster because Blockbuster wanted to start selling movies on broadband. So they had profited, or they put in their books as a profit, $110 million way before that activity even started. So the root of the problem was found by Sharon Watkins, who was the vice president of Enron, and she actually wrote a letter to the CEO, to Kenneth Lay, stating that, or telling him that Enron was funding these partnerships. They were funding them using the stocks within the company instead of getting funds from outside investors. So what would happen was, if the investments went bad, then Enron would pay out of their own pocket, out of their own assets. So what would happen was, if the debt, they would shift the debt out of their books, and so the income from these investments would take their place, just so that they had enough to, like I said earlier, to help them out if they for future losses. So the stocks would rise, and those partnerships would grow in value, and so they would have enough money to cover those investment losses. But in this case of Enron, which led to their downfall, was the opposite. The stocks fell, and they did not have enough money to cover those investment losses. So this was the case for Enron. And also another player in their downfall was the accounting company that they had hired, which was Anderson Company, and they wanted them to, change their accounting techniques, and I just stated the accounting technique that they used. And amidst the downfall, they had wanted, lawyers from that accounting company had wanted Enron to get rid of any unimportant documents. And so what had happened was, the reps at Enron started shredding important documents from Enron. So that kind of led to this whole fraud and the conspiracy that was going on. Sorry about that. Okay, so the result from these accounting techniques that were used in Enron, Enron had restated their profits from the past 4 years, and they did admit to inflating their profits by hiding their jets within these made-up partnerships that they created. So on December 2nd, they filed for bankruptcy, and within those 3 months, their shares went from $95 all the way below to $1. So you can see there's a graph right there that kind of shows like the downfall of their shares. You're probably wondering, where are these people today? Well, Kenneth Lay, the CEO and the founder of Enron, he is no longer with us. He passed away in July of 2006. He died before he could appeal, so that means all his 10 convictions were just wiped out. Jeff Skilling, the consultant, he is actually in prison in Colorado today. He is sentenced with a 24-year sentence for conspiracy, fraud, and insider trading. Andrew Fastow, he was the one that was the accounting person at Enron. He pled guilty to 2 conspiracy counts. He was sentenced to jail for 10 years, but he only served 5, and his sentence ended in December of 2011. And Sharon Watkins, the former vice president of Enron, she gained that reputation of being a whistleblower in the business, because she was the one that actually wrote a letter to the CEO telling him that something was wrong with the accounting technique. She no longer is working in the business, but she is teaching now. So she is teaching now. She still gets a lot of questions about the scandal that occurred. So in conclusion, I want to wrap up what I had just mentioned. Enron had used really bad accounting techniques in order to make themselves look good, but in the end, they obviously went bankrupt, and a lot of people, it affected a lot of people. And so you're probably wondering why it's relevant for me. Well, like I said in the beginning, we have to understand where debt goes. We have to understand that we can't sidestep debt. We always have to pay it, and obviously Enron